Hi everyone, Charles from the Food People here. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. It's my great pleasure to welcome Kristian Tapaninaho, founder and co-CEO of Ooni. We're going to be talking, of course, about all things pizza, Ooni's story so far, building business culture, talking a bit about innovation, regenerative business models, and much, much more. Welcome, Kristian. It's a great pleasure to have you as part of the Food People in conversation with.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh, so much for having me on.
At the Food People, we're very clear about why we do what we do. We're champions of change, driven every day by our intent to shift the future of food and drink by harnessing the power of trends. And in this In Conversation With series, it's all about talking to people and brands and businesses and entrepreneurs across the spectrum of food and drink to find out more about why they do what they do and how in their way they're championing change and shifting the future of food and drink. So without further ado, Kristian, great to be talking to you today. Let's get started and maybe just kick off with a little bit of an intro, who you are, what you do, where you're even speaking to us from. That would be a good place to start.
All right, that's a great place to start. So yeah, my name is Kristian Tapaninaho. I'm the founder and co-CEO of Ooni. I'm joined here, joining the call here from our Lomond House offices in Edinburgh. An office on our two offices here in Edinburgh. So started Ooni about 11 years ago now. Started as a Kickstarter campaign, a bit of an entrepreneurial kind of mind myself. So it was something that kind of combined my interests in entrepreneurship and my passion for making great pizza at home that got Ooni started around 2012.
Brilliant. Well, look, I'd be surprised if anybody doesn't know, but for anyone that hasn't heard of Ooni, what is Ooni?
What is Ooni? That's a great question. So I guess way people see Ooni as and what we're known for is that we really took on in 2012. We really took on the kind of status quo of pizza ovens and revolutionized it by I don't know, it's hard to come up with a good category name. What did we actually invent? But we kind of see it as we invented the category of modern pizza oven. So we took the traditions and we made them into something that's a modern product that can essentially we enable anyone to have and make great pizza and at home.
Yeah, okay. And funny enough, I was going to go on to ask you what as a brand is it that you're trying to achieve and setting out to do? And I think you might have touched on that in the answer to the previous question, but can you elaborate a little bit more on that? What's the brand's trying to enable people to do?
Yeah, sure. So it started very much for myself as a passion. I got into making pizza at home. My mom is a great baker. She actually used to run a bakery back in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
And so baking and cooking at home has always been super close to my heart. Mm-hmm. And in around 2010, I got really into, my wife and I had got married. And there's an interesting, really funny one is that within the 12 months of people getting married, they tend to take on pizza making. We don't know why that is, but statistically that seems to happen. Yeah. So that happened to myself as well. I got really into making pizza at home, and through that, really quickly started realizing that this domestic pizza oven that I was using, I had domestic electric oven in our rented accommodation, in our rented house in Southeast London, just wasn't up to scratch for making fantastic pizza. Yeah. One thing about pizza making is that you need higher temperatures than your domestic pizza oven can deliver. And that's when I started looking into how do I make great pizza at home? And really at the time, the only answer was you spend £2,000 on a large traditional brick and mortar oven in the back of your garden. Now, that wasn't really okay. There wasn't really an option for me at the time. We didn't have the money. We didn't have the space. We were renting. So I started looking into it and seeing that, well, how could I take this concept of making fantastic pizza at much higher temperatures than an electric oven can deliver, and how to turn that tradition into kind of modern take on it. And that's where we started. And really what we're about is about pizza ovens, but pizza ovens that make much more than just pizza.
Yeah.
Just like a traditional oven, you could make a great roast in there. You could bake bread, all these things. Same way with an Ooni, you can make fantastic pizzas, and you can do so much more.
Yeah, and it's enabling, I think, and connecting with people outdoors as well. I think that's something that I really associate the brand with. A lot of, I know so many people that have Ooni ovens, and they talk about, you know, enabling sort of outdoor entertaining moments and that kind of thing. It's yeah, super exciting.
I think it's becoming a much more important part of cooking is that experiential element of it.
Yeah.
We tend to when people are using takeaway services a lot more, where food really just becomes, you get something really nice food delivered to your home. You don't really have to pay attention. But when you do actually start cooking something, especially when it's in the weekends or when you have friends over, you have your family over, it's not just about the fuel or the great food that you're making. It is also around the experience that you have in making that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, depending on which history books you read, we've been eating pizza since 600 BC, some would say. So the basic need to cook pizza is clearly not a new one. And you touched a little bit then on your inspiration point and that light bulb moment. But can you tell us a little bit about that early journey from that need that you had? What then happened? What was the kind of process that you then went through?
So in the really early stages, I remember pitching this idea to Dorina in 2011 that I'd been thinking about it for a few weeks at that point, and it was just kind of this need came from, or this kind of a realization of that, hey, I think there's a missing product from the market.
Mm-hmm.
We have traditional ovens at thousands of pounds, and we have barbecues that are much more affordable, but not very good at all for making pizza. They're for barbecuing meats and grilling meats. Why isn't there anything that is affordable, something that anyone could have in their garden, regardless of their economic status or how much garden space they have?
Yeah.
Why isn't there a product for that? And it really started from that first, without knowing how to make the product itself happen, realizing that, hey, there's a really good opportunity in the market, a product category that's just missing. And from that sort of inception of the idea, then I started figuring out how to make it happen. And it was really very much a kind of a problem solving exercise of how do you get rid of 300, 500 kilograms of brick and mortar, and you condense it down into what was literally the boxed weight of the original Ooni was 10 kilograms. And there's a very specific limit of 10 kilograms to make sure that it could be posted through regular courier services at a reasonable cost. So it's putting these kind of parameters and guidelines around it, guide rails around it, that, okay, it has to fit this here. And it wasn't aiming to be everything. It was really aiming to disrupt the traditional ovens in the cost of entry into the market, into the ability to make pizza at home, and just enabling fantastic pizza at home. And beyond that, then of course we've expanded with our products, and now you can literally replace your traditional oven with an Ooni. That's the very beginning of it, and really a problem solving exercise of taking, so the way that traditional ovens work is they take a lot of energy to sink into the thermal mass that they have. In some cases, these ovens take days to heat up. If they've not been on, they take days to heat up very slowly up to the right temperature. Now we got rid of all of that thermal mass, and we use the energy straight from the fire. So it's really super efficient in those terms. You don't need to waste a lot of fuel to cook a pizza.
And is this something that did you do yourself? Did you do the original prototyping yourself? Did you create something, or did you work with someone? How did that work in the early days?
So I did all the design work myself, and I've always been a bit of a I don't know how to, I don't have a strictly engineering background at all, but I've always had a bit of quite an interest into sciences. I've been kind of I don't know, like describe myself as a bit of a polymath without the genius part. And just really interested into sciences, product design. I studied arts, I studied photography back in the day. Really interested into architecture. So it was kind of a combination of these interests and this mindset of thinking, okay, well, I understand what the problem is. I'm sure I can figure out what the solution is. It's a lot of times we don't really understand the problem that we're solving before we start jumping into the solving mode. We start solving a problem without fully understanding what it is we're trying to solve. So it was really understanding what the issue was to solve, and then kind of diving into it. So I was doing a lot of the design work myself, and then using a local metal workshop down the street from us in London to knock up some really rudimentary basic forms out of sheet metal, but forms that would allow different types of experimentation. I did have an angle grinder and a small welding kit as well in the back garden, so I could do a little bit of tinkering myself to try and speed things up a little bit. But that's not an area that I call my forte.
Oh, fantastic story there, and I'm sure the person who made those early prototypes looks on in awe now at where the brand has gone and moved to since those very early days.
Absolutely, it's quite in many ways unrecognizable from those days.
Yeah,
although there are some parts of the design DNA that was started back in those, literally the first prototypes, that is still there. There's a strong sort of a kind of golden ratio of 3/3 present in the original Oonis. This kind of like you have a shape, and that's divided into 4/3 horizontally, and then that becomes the shape, and that shape is kind of translates and kind of carries through the Oonis all the way today.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned a few moments ago that you recognized this challenge and this problem, and what you'd set out was to disrupt the traditional pizza oven market. But it certainly feels like you've created a space all of its own now. And what do you think it is that makes that proposition so unique for Ooni? How do you characterize the magic, I suppose?
Characterize the magic. I guess it's I've been at around the time of inception for Ooni, I was really interested in disruption theory, and I was reading. There's a now late professor, Clayton Christensen, who wrote books, Innovator's Dilemma and Innovator's Solution, and was really interested in that kind of almost like a theoretical side of disruption and how that happens and how that's been present in almost every industry throughout the ages, and how in some cases there is always a newcomer who comes in and disrupts an industry, and sometimes it's the old guard that is able to evolve fast enough in order to keep on top of it and keep relevant. And one of the kind of better examples of this would be if you look at computer industry and how that's evolved from mainframes to mini computer and personal computer, and now into these things here into your ear. Exactly. And there's been stages where that's been the old computer companies have been disrupted, and sometimes like Apple for the last 20 years has been able to evolve fast enough themselves in order to stay on top of it. So there is the kind of magic where there's magic is that we're enabling those experiences to more people that was only present and only able to happen for only a few people. If you think about it, like how many people in the UK, UK is a very wealthy country in general. How many people would have the money to spend on a £2,000 traditional oven for their garden? Experience that oven would deliver is fantastic, but not many people would do that jump. So that I think part of that magic has been around democratizing that experience. That was only limited to a few
people. You touched on innovation a number of different times there, and it certainly feels like in talking to you today and when we caught up a few weeks or months ago, the innovation is very much in your core. But how does that manifest itself across the culture, I suppose, of your organization, you know, through product design and functionality of the product? How does that work?
So we keep our culture at the heart of things. We always get this feedback from people who've recently joined or have been with us for a few months, is that that they say that they thought that it felt really good from the outside, but actually it's much better once you're inside and you think that, okay, it's actually real. We are really strong on our values, and one of those values is kindness. The other one at the other end of it, not another end of it, but another part of the spectrum, we've got innovation, rigor, ambition, and passion. So we keep those 5 values at the heart of everything that we do. We use those as kind of touch points or check-in points on activities that we do. And often, of course, people kind of spot out kindness as the kind of core value there. And it's an easy one to notice because it's maybe slightly more unusual for a bigger company to have. But making sure that we value each of our values just the same way, like innovation and ambition, enables our people here to really drive those values through the work that they do in their day-to-day. I think we've been able to build a really incredible product engineering team over the last couple of years. It was very much myself and maybe a handful or about a dozen others for a long time, but now being able to build in a new and bigger team to drive innovation right into the future is, I think, one of the keys for our future success.
I mean, I find that really inspiring. I mean, but it's surely easier to maintain that culture when it's just, you know, a smaller business. Now that how many people in your organization?
We are 375.
Wow. So that obviously has changed a lot in the time since the business was smaller. How do you maintain that, I suppose?
It's I mean, you could say that it's a full-time job. It is about every interaction that you have with people that you work with. It's harder these days, of course. Drin and I running the company, we are not able to have touch points with everybody across the business all the time. And really unfortunately, there are people in the company that I've never had an opportunity to speak with. But that's because that's the reality of it. You have to kind of see how do you then deliver it at scale. I think it's completely possible, and I think we've been successful at it. But it starts with a strong leadership team and living those values, us kind of presenting and living to those values in interactions that we have with people, and trusting our people here to do the same. We've always said this from the beginning, that then when you join Ooni, you get the keys to the kingdom from day one, and we trust people. And I think that's something that doesn't happen that often, that you have to, in many places, you have to earn your trust. We take the opposite. We trust people from the day one. And I think that trust then allows those people to trust us back. And when we say things like, okay, this is what's important for us as a business, they trust us that that is the case.
Yeah. Wow.
And they take the responsibility to carry that on.
Yeah, and that's very, very different from the culture in many organizations. Certainly I've come into contact with, worked with in the past.
We had an interesting conversation with our CFO recently, and we had so of course, I mean, we interact. There's you know, we have a lot of employees. There's always something doesn't quite go right with just absolutely everyone. And we had a case some years ago where someone did abuse that trust, and he was asked by I think it was by the bank that, well, so this has happened now. Are you now going to put in these heavy controls over certain parts of the business, and are you gonna fully change the way that we're doing things? And his reply has been, no, actually, it's not worth it. We're going to continue trusting. We're not going to not trust the 375 people who are with us here today because there's been a bad apple come through the company. Yeah, and it's much better. It's much more valuable for us to continue on that trust than give it away for one incident.
Yeah, no, definitely that makes sense. And also, you know, if you turn your back on those values because of that one instance, it shows that the values perhaps weren't as, you know, true or important to you as you said they were. So I guess that makes sense.
It's only on the difficult times that those values are tested.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you a little bit about IP? Where do you see the IP in your product, and how on earth could you possibly go about trying to protect it? Is that even a thing that you consider?
Yeah, we do many registrations of different types of IP. There's the kind of basic stuff that we do, or it's around patents. We have a few patents around the products that enable some of the performance that we believe is better than some of the competition has. So those things have been patented. Of course, when I started this over 10 years ago now, people were asking that, well, are you gonna patent it? Are you gonna patent your invention? And at that time, it was really hard because you can't just patent a concept of a compact pizza oven. You can't say, oh, this is a compact pizza oven. You have to have something novel and something very specific. And as time goes on, and as we continue innovating in the category, we continue finding new ways of making these remarkably better than anyone else, and those are the areas that we are registering. Then there's of course around design rights that we're registering, the kind of distinct look of an Ooni. I think everyone who knows our products could say easily that, well, that looks like an Ooni. Yeah, and we want to maintain that clarity. But I think there's a lot there that we consider as kind of intellectual property, and it's around the brand and the image that we have with our customers, and that is kind of imbued into the community that we have. And that's something that you cannot register, but you can continue fostering and building on top of.
And it's so multi-layered as well, isn't it? It's that type of thing. I mean, everything that you were saying from the values of the business at its foundation all actually form part of the layering of the IP of the brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been fairly widely reported. I think we reported on it in our own trends reporting that COVID drove a huge investment in domestic pizza ovens in all shapes and sizes. Certainly in the UK and the developed world. What impact did that period of time have on Ooni?
Best way to see the last 11 years of Ooni is that we're a classic case of an overnight success, 10 years in the making. Yeah. We had an incredible ambition pretty much from day one. I remember pitching this idea to the CEO of Ace Hardware. Ace Hardware is a big 5,000 doors hardware store chain in the US. we met him in the summer of 2017 and pitching this idea. We were at this stage, for context, we were like, we've done maybe the previous year, we've done about just under £3 million revenue.
Yeah.
And I pitched him this idea that, look, in 5 years' time, we want to be one of the top 5 outdoor cooking companies in the world. And I remember now looking back at it, it's like, okay, that's even ballsy for me to say. But here we are. We had this incredible ambition, and it was really based on the fact that when you look at the industry itself, this was a clear missing category, and us going in there as the number 1 product in the brand in the category, the best products, best product market fit, that was ours to kind of go for.
Yeah.
Not taking anything for granted. But that was really the ambition had always been there. And that was what we very consciously from 2018 onwards were driving. We want to be the world's number 1 pizza oven brand. And arguably, I would say that very quick Google search will reveal that that's the case.
Yeah.
COVID, of course, drove a lot of interest. It brought the future forward a lot. We were in a really fortunate position in start of 2020 that we were ready to be that company that takes advantage of that future growth, and that growth that was coming towards us.
Yeah.
A lot of other companies grew through that market as well, so it wasn't just us. But really, it's brought the future forward a lot faster for us.
I mean, in the UK, we're very much a nation of BBQers. How, in your experience, do attitudes towards outdoor cooking differ across the globe?
There's UK is definitely a great barbecuing country, and there's a lot of interest. I think there's unlike a lot of Europe, demographics are such that a lot of people, it's an ambition to have a slice of a terraced house and a garden. Your own house is a big deal, whereas a lot of Europe, especially in bigger cities, it's a lot of apartments and maybe with a small balcony. So that's as a country that really helps. Up here in Scotland, one of the drivers and where we think we've got a great place to be in is that Ooni heats up so fast that you don't have to worry about spending hours outside. You often get beautiful weather up here, but the fact that you can go and turn on your Ooni and prep your pizzas indoors, run outside, get them cooked, I think it's a great strength. I think there's a huge amount of growth that the UK market across all barbecues still has to come. There's I think the spend across in the US, what people are willing to spend on their outdoor cooking gear is still a completely different planet than what it is in the UK. We certainly see that in our product lineup is the more affordable models that do really well in the UK, whereas it's the bigger models that do better in the US. And I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone, really.
What about other parts of Europe, perhaps? And thinking about the Nordics and sort of, Central and Southern Europe, do you see any kind of differences in kind of attitudes and, I guess, propensity to, because I'm making a comparison between barbecuing, which is subtly different, I think, from what we're talking about here. But I think the Germans have always been great barbecuers as well. Is that,
They are, Germany's a great barbecuing country, definitely. So the Nordics are an interesting one where people, because of the length of the summer season, I mean, I'm from Finland originally, so I know this very well myself. The summer is only about 2.5 months long, 3 months long. So people tend to really put a lot of effort into summer. When summer is there, it's all out. You spend, and this is what happens when I'm at home at my parents'. We maybe cook half of the dinners. We cook them outdoors. That we make there. And so people are really willing to invest in those short summers. There's some variances between different countries across Europe, but it's all like I think we're still in the building of the market phase here for pizza ovens themselves. It's such a new category that most people still don't know that it's possible to own a pizza oven and that doesn't cost thousands.
Yeah. And how have you seen, you know, during the life of the business, how have you seen sort of attitudes towards outdoor cooking evolve over the life of your business? How has it changed?
People are willing to put more effort into that experience, and they're getting much nerdier, I guess, on that for that experience. So they're spending a lot more time researching recipes on YouTube and websites, and that's why we invest a lot in creating recipe content ourselves for people's kind of as inspiration on what's possible. So I think that's just looking at the pizza market for the past 11, 12 years, it feels like it's completely night and day. We've had how even just eating pizza out in restaurants has completely changed in that time. If you cast your mind back to early 2010s, like you barely had Franco Manca in London. There was very few places that made proper Neapolitan style pizza, and now there's all sorts of different styles of pizza. You've got your Neapolitans, you've got New York, Detroit, all sorts of pizza styles that are coming to life. So I think there's that kind of brain explosion of almost the kind of what's possible, and people are willing to spend a lot more time and effort into making food.
I'll talk to you about, I've got a few specific pizza questions for you, which I'll talk to you about in a second. But I know when we caught up a few months ago, we talked about your drive towards a regenerative business model. And what does a regenerative business model mean?
In a nutshell, we are aiming towards a world where buying an Ooni oven is not just better for the people. We think it's a huge net positive for you to buy an Ooni. You'll get some great experiences with your family. You'll get to make some food, better pizza than you can buy in most all restaurants near you. But we also want to include in that we want to get to a place where it's also better for the planet. So we are cognizant of the fact that we are producing new things into the world, and new things that also require you to power them with something. Everything from wood pellets, as we started with, or charcoal, or solid fuels, or you can use propane gas, and now of course this year we've added the electric model. So we create more things into the world, and our goal as a company is to get to a place where every time you buy a new product from us, is that the world also benefits from that. So we find a way of not taking away, but actually being able to put back into the world through that process.
And is that something that you're on a journey to work out what that looks like? Do you have initiatives that you run now? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the journey for us has started, this probably goes back to 2015. We were in Finland. Rin and I with our kids were in Finland for a few weeks in the summer, and we were thinking about this idea of how could we, because we were buying wood pellets to power our ovens at that time. How could we find a way of producing those pellets that then ended up, instead of those single species forests where a lot of these pellets are coming from, we would actually plant forests that were ecologically sound and would be classed as and set aside for forever, essentially. So it started with this idea of looking into forests, and since then we've planted 4.5 million trees. through Eden Reforestation Project. So that's the kind of the background of it. And now, as we go moving into the future, we're looking at the kind of whole impact of our products, of where the raw materials come from, of course, shipping, packaging, all these things, but also the use of the products themselves and how to minimize the impact from there. About 50% of the overall kind of carbon footprint impact is actually from the use of the products themselves. So that's a huge area of interest for us. So we're spending a lot of time in optimizing efficiency in the products. We've already done great improvements in Karu 12G this year, which is more efficient. It's number escapes, but somewhere around 25-30% more efficient with with gas, propane gas consumption with the same old gas burner, because of the faster heat up times and better insulation in the product. So through these things, and of course, if we compare ourselves back to, traditional pizza ovens, Ooni doesn't take days to heat up. It's 20 minutes and it's ready to cook. So it's through lots of these types of initiatives. We have a head of regenerative business, Kate Upshon, who's done a long career at Body Shop, and she's kind of leading the work on making us as impactful as possible when it comes to doing this. But it's not going to happen overnight. We think we believe it's more of a 15-year project.
Yeah, definitely a journey, and I'd imagine enabled over that period of time by all sorts of different things. Your approach to innovation and culture, but also technology as well, is going to play a key part in that project over time.
Absolutely.
A few pizza questions, if I may.
I
wanted to ask you, for you, what's the secret of a great pizza and your favorite combination?
My favorite, so one of my top tips that I give for anyone who's getting into pizza making is just relax, don't worry about it. Read the recipe, just follow the recipe, measure your ingredients, and you'll be fine. Like, it's not that difficult. People sometimes have this kind of preconception of pizza making, that it's going to be sticky and it's going to be hard to make the dough, and there's something magical about it. But actually, one beautiful thing about bread making, which is part of pizza making, is that there's a lot of science to it. So if you just follow the recipe, you measure your ingredients, it's going to be great. I love pizza making because it's the kind of a combination of this art of cooking and the science of bread making coming together. And that's why I love it. That's my one tip, which is maybe a non-tip. Just follow the recipe. But excuse me, that'll get you really, really far. Now, my favorite pizza toppings, if I had to kind of like, my desert island pizza would probably be one with anchovies, capers, olives, and red sauce, or marinara sauce, no cheese, and a bit of basil and a bit of garlic sliced up really thinly, and sort of a Neapolitan style kind of a bake on it. That's my go-to, and that's usually I make that. If I'm making pizzas at home, I'll make at least one of those pizzas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. Anchovies and olive and capers on pizza are just outstanding. I love a bit of blue cheese on pizza as well,
There's a trick, actually. Blue cheese is best put in after it's baked, because otherwise it melts into this kind of a bit of a mess.
Yeah, it gets a bit oily, doesn't it?
Same thing with induja, is that people often put it on before it goes into the oven, whereas then it sort of melts and kind of gets really oily. But actually, if you take as the pizza comes out, then put the induja on straight away with a tiny spoon, kind of trot it around the pizza. That's it.
It just melts and just softens enough then, doesn't it? Yeah, it warms enough.
Absolutely.
I think you, like me, have had the pleasure of traveling a lot and eating a lot of pizza in various different parts of the world. What would your top 3 pizza restaurants be?
Top 3. I can't thin it down to 3, I'll do a 3 plus bonus.
Go on then.
Pizzeria. There's let's start east to west. So we'll go with Pepe and Granny in Cacho outside of Naples. Honestly, it is just insane. I would go there if you can ever go there with a few other people. So you're like maybe a group of 4 would be perfect. So you can try out a lot of different styles. They do some awesome like straight sort of their Neapolitan style pizza, but then they also do some deep fried pizzas, which are just you have no idea that they're deep fried. They're so light, so just gorgeous. Moving now, the next 3 are going to be in the US. So New Haven, there's a place called Zubardi's. It's awesome. They do a pizza, which is their kind of the New Haven style pizza. And that's their white clam pizza is just incredible. Robert's Pizza and Dough Co. in Chicago. I'd go there next. They do what's called, kind of describe it as this artisanal style pizza. It's the dough is maybe closer to a bread dough in its texture than maybe the other ones. It's got a really nice kind of crispy outside of the crust, but really nice soft and really creative toppings. And then finally, Tony's Neapolitan pizza. I think it's a place called Tony's Neapolitan Pizza, but actually it's a funny one because it's they have like 5 different types of ovens in there. This is in San Francisco, and they do tons of different styles of pizza. So this is my bonus one, is that actually if you're ever in San Francisco, absolutely go there. Again, go with an empty belly, we go with hunger, because there's a lot of great stuff to test out there.
Tony Gimiani, isn't it? And there's
yeah, that's it.
Like you, I remember I did go with a group of people, and he was there and gave us the tour around and all the different ovens, and it was a wild experience. It really was. I'd have Paulie G's at Greenpoint would be on my list as well, and it was more. I mean, the pizza is amazing, but he was there and talked through all the dishes, and it was at the time when Mike's Hot Honey was just starting out, and Mike was actually pouring the honey into the little pots. He was making it all by hand at the time in the back of Paulie G's kitchen. So that was quite memorable as well. So that would be on my list as well.
That's cool. I've actually never been to the Greenpoint one. From Paulie G's. I've been to the slice shop, which is in Brooklyn as well. And to another one. Where's the other one I've been?
There's one in Chicago now as well.
There's a Chicago one. That's the one I've been to as well. Actually, I did a pizza tour in Chicago some years ago, and that was great fun.
No, brilliant. Beyond the commercial success, obviously, of the brand, I'm really intrigued as to what your why is, your purpose. Why is it that you do what you do? What are you at your heart, I suppose?
Oh gosh, that's a deep question. I think my personal kind of why is that I think I'm an entrepreneur. I have this. I look at the world, and all I can see is these opportunities of doing things better and making things better.
Yeah,
and I think that's where Ooni started, was getting into a hobby, but then combining it with this sort of discovery of opportunity that, hey, there's an opportunity to make this better for a lot of people, not just for myself. And I think that's the driver for me, is this discovery of opportunities that exist in the world. I think there's a lot of opportunities in a lot of industries, and there's a lot of these industries are in a bit of a status quo for one reason or another. So that's the driver for me, and it's while I often talk about these discoveries in other industries, I get a huge amount of energy from continuing to discover those opportunities in our company and in the products that we make. So that's the driver for me.
Oh, brilliant. And my last question is, I suppose you've achieved so much as a team and as a business, a brand over the last kind of 10 years or so. What's next for Ooni? What are the exciting things that we've got to look forward to that you can tell us about?
I mean, we're only just getting started, and well, that's sounds like okay. Everyone says that they're only just getting started, but our brand recognition, we're the #1 pizza oven brand in the world, and there's still in the US, for example, only about 10% of consumers have heard of us when in an aided brand recognition. So we've got a huge road ahead of us in showing more people around the world that hey, this is possible. We are leaning towards kind of enabling that people making great pizza at home. We're really keen on making sure that people understand that hey, these are not just pizza ovens. We call ourselves Ooni, not Ooni pizza ovens. But it's a complicated thing, but the product category still is pizza ovens, but I think people know what we mean by that. So we've got a huge road, like a long road ahead of us, and long and interesting road ahead of us in moving the needle. And really one of the other things that we're super enthusiastic about and really cannot wait to do is around this kind of showing the world a better way of doing business with our regenerative goals. We are still like we're I don't know 375 people and all this, we've got this size that we're at and all this, but we're still small in the grand scheme of things. So one of our biggest impacts that we can have in the world is showing other companies what's possible and inspiring them to follow us. This is a little tiny example of that, is that we've not used styrofoam. We've barely used styrofoam ever in our packaging. But we've completely stopped using it probably 7 years ago or something like that. And it was really interesting. I saw like an unboxing video for one of Weber's newer products, and it was really delighted to see that they have very little styrofoam there either. They've gone into more of a structural corrugate packaging, which I don't know how much they're looking at us, but I mean, we're starting to be in a scale where when we do something, people do take notice and they say, okay, well, Ooni's doing that. That must be the direction of travel here.
No, definitely. I do have one last question that I meant to ask earlier on. And what's in the name Ooni? What is it? What does it mean? Does it mean anything? What does it stand for?
So really simply, Ooni, as you pronounce it, Ooni, means oven in Finnish. The original name was UUNI, which is literally oven in Finnish. But we changed it in 2018 to Ooni OONI, so that it's easier for the world outside of Finland to pronounce it. So at the time, people were pronouncing it as Uni or Uni or something like that. So we changed it to make it easier, and we were able to actually get the .com domain as well at the time for OONI. So
even better.
So simply, it's an oven.
Fantastic, brilliant. Look, that concludes this episode of the Food People in Conversation with Kristian. On behalf of us all at the Food People and the In Conversation with audience, thank you so much for joining us for today. I know you've had a super busy schedule, but thanks for sharing the Ooni story. It's been a real eye-opener. Pleasure to speak to you. Thanks for sharing some of the more intimate workings of the business and the brand. And good luck. And I think we all, watch with bated breath as to where you go, and as you say, you're only at the beginning of the journey, so we look forward to following your journey.
Thanks, Charles. This has been a total blast. Thanks so much.
So do join our TFP community for the details of our latest In Conversation with episodes, as well as the latest free to access food and drink trends foresight. Visit thefoodpeople.co.uk and complete your details at the footer of the page. On behalf of Kristian and myself, Thanks for listening to the Food People in Conversation with. Do join with us in the trends of today and the foresight of tomorrow to shift the future of food and drink by harnessing the power of trends. And leave you with one question: how are you predicting the future of food and drink? Thanks for listening.